Liberty in America is under assault. We no longer live in a reality that includes property rights. We're no longer the kings of our own castle. We no longer enjoy the true benefits of capitalism. Instead, we're negotiating our rights with our own government. This isn't how our country was founded. These aren't the ideas of our founders. It's time to seize back our country. This is the Liberty Hour, where these important issues will be discussed for the sake of America's future. With a cigar in one hand and a copy of the Constitution in the other, here's your host, Sean Thompson.
This is the Liberty Hour podcast, where the kid in there in his mom's yoga pants managed to get the show on today. Kudos, Justin, you girl. I forgot the cigar in the car, but that's all right. Oh, look, people are walking by. So yesterday we came in, we had a little bit of an issue, but I'm glad we did because, you know, at first you're a little aggravated. You drive here for nothing. I got to see, another transvestite in the producer's room. However, I was able to manage a little real estate business here in Illinois that I've been putting off. Now, the reason I put it off and the reason that I opened in Florida is very simple. As a real estate broker, your job is to protect your client. I take that a little seriously. And it was obvious to me years ago that given what Illinois and the trajectory that it's on, that it was no longer feasible or the right thing to do to invest in Illinois real estate. And some of the people I deal with cannot afford to lose money. Some can, and some are in on the scam, and it's okay. They average it out, whether they get these phony baloney municipal pensions or not. And, they figure it's a wash, and they'll bail and live the rest of their life in a state that's run well. So I capitalized on that. I opened up in Florida, and you'd be surprised. I get a lot of them. But the other issue is the people who cannot afford but are deceived by their lack of knowledge, their willful ignorance, or the propaganda that's being spewed by the phony baloney Illinois politicians. And by the way, this is bipartisan skullduggery. Make no mistake about it. Do not think I am siding with the standard Illinois Republican, for I view him as twice as bad as the incompetent socialist Illinois Democrat. And we're inundated often with these commercials. These commercials that we see are running now by really the true punchline of our latest governorship. And that is the punchline of J.B. Pritzker. I find it to be just unbelievable to me that these commercials run. I would say I've seen them actually run 2 or 3 times in the same commercial break.
In Illinois, the top 1% makes 65 times more than the bottom 99%. So why does everyone pay the same tax rate? It's time for change. Let's make our tax system fair in Illinois.
See, now this is run by a front group called Think Big. I don't know if they include Think Big Illinois. Who knows how they, it's a scam, a tax loophole where it's funded by J.B. Pritzker and his cohorts, really mainly him, and they can buy these commercial times, which have to be astronomical amounts of money because they are running constantly. Think Big, and they're focusing on how you should hate the rich man, as the whole time they increased your very taxes, right? Then we just realized they're doubling everything. I know that the news media is gonna wrap it in the fact that tragically state troopers have been getting hit, so Scott's Law or whatever it is, and they double the fine. Well, they've doubled all the licenses for professional licenses and regulations. They've doubled the gas tax. They plan on doubling, actually more than doubling, if you were foolish enough to buy one of these matches with wheels called Teslas. They've doubled your electric car $1,000 lack of gas tax that you pay. The whole time, they don't want you to focus on the fact that they've been stealing and misappropriating and wasting the infrastructure money that we've already been paying in taxes. So it's for all of these reasons that you do not, in essence, become a stockholder, a shareholder in Illinois by buying real estate, okay? So the reason I'm telling you this, I have this really nice young kid who I've been trying to talk out of buying Illinois real estate for about 4 months now. So much so that I said to him, look, I'm not going to help you. I'll give you somebody who can help you and navigate you through these waters. But me personally, if you're not going to take my advice, I see that you want to have a family and you want to do, I'm not going to help you lose money. So, because I can't give you an opinion of excitement that you should have as a young guy buying real estate in this, in your life. You should be excited about it. It should be a good thing. Historically, it has been a tremendous hedge against inflation. It has been a way for you to live, not necessarily for free, but it's sometimes at a great profit when you buy in a great area. And he said, well, Sean, I don't understand what you're saying, because this house I'm looking at in 1994 sold for $267,000. And the guy lived here, raised his family here, and look, he's selling it for $299,000. And it reminded me that the average person, I have kids that are I've got a daughter graduating high school. I deal with the producers here. They don't understand inflationally adjusted. They don't get it. So it's just a word salad to them. They don't understand it. So I had the opportunity to tell this wonderful young guy, who, by the way, works two jobs. He has a fiance. He wants to start a family. And I said, you do understand the kind of money that this man lost, right? He's like, well, how did he lose? He didn't lose any money. Paid $267. It's for sale for $299. I'm prepared to pay $285 for the house. He didn't lose money. And I said, in 1994, his $267,000, do you know if we inflationally adjust it, what that is in today's dollars? And he said, what do you mean? I said, the value, the purchasing power, the macroeconomic stability of the American dollar in 1994 versus today. What do you think the difference is? And I saw that blank look in his face. I said, let's do the math. So you go to an inflation calculator, one that isn't promoted by the government. I use several. One of the ones I like to use is one that was provided by the founder of a company, Shadow Stats, who was founded by an old government numbers cruncher. He actually worked for the government for 30 years and retired, and he deciphers the difference in which information is calculated from when we were young to how it has been manipulated to today. And the reality is, when we punch it in, inflationally adjust $267,000 in 1994 to today's dollars, you know what it is, kid? You don't know because you're still wearing your mom's pants. It is $462,899.02. That means that the equivalent of what he paid is $463,000. So anything he sells under that is an absolute loss, the equal loss of the dollar he spent in 94. Not to mention, when you calculate the property taxation, you're talking about 25 years of taxes, 25 years of maintenance, 25 years of improvement, 25 years of cost. So this guy lost virtually everything. And he's begging that this kid writes a contract for $285. And that is an introduction to Illinois real estate. Now, everybody's got the greatest neighborhood in the world. I know it's Hinsdale, it's Oak Brook, it's River Forest, it's Winnetka, it's Wheaton. I hear you. But numbers don't lie. Numbers don't care about the emotions attached to living down the block from your sister-in-law. Numbers are numbers. Reality is reality. And the reality is, you cannot, in good conscience, help facilitate someone in buying Illinois property unless they are taking it over for free, seizing it. Maybe they could recoup some sort of a financial benefit. But this is the reality, and this is why these commercials come. This is a very deliberate thing. I'm not smarter than any of these people who are lying to you. The difference is they have the low character to do so with a smile on their face. J.B. Pritzker isn't dumber than, well, maybe he is. I mean, obviously he can't count calories. J.B. Pritzker is just more deceitful. He's aware of these things I'm telling you. When he thinks of real estate, this is what he thinks about. He is a third-generation real estate developer. He has been watching it. Now, granted, if it wasn't for his grandfather, he's not smart enough to sell insurance. However, he has grown up knowing these numbers that I speak of. This is not wizardry. This is something that every financial analyst, every investment advisor, everybody who's gone to college with a financial degree, this is how you should look at everything. is through inflationally adjusted. This is why I have been such a proponent of financial fundamentals and principles in government, because ultimately it's all about just lying to you in a way in which you're comfortable. It's why the Republicans do change their fundamentals, have no principles. They talk about a well-managed failure versus a kind of an Ocasio-Cortez, which should scare and send a shiver up your spine. And they're right to a certain extent. However, it is about understanding and realizing the cost of your love and affection to stay near your family is at an extremely high premium in Illinois. In other states, when you inflationally adjust, you'll find you really aren't making a tremendous amount of money, but you are maintaining your head above water when it comes to inflation, when it comes to investment, when it comes to costs. So when you buy in Tennessee, when you buy in Florida, when you buy in Texas, when you buy in well-run states that have zero income tax, very low fees for existing, you can come out significantly ahead. That's why people say if you maintain the same income, but you move to Tennessee, you're giving yourself a 30% pay increase. This is the calculation in which they come to that. And now you're inundated constantly to have your neighbor covet you and your success, or somebody else if it's not you. And it has become the philosophy or lack thereof of the Illinoisan. And that's why you should take into consideration it's time to go. Not just the obvious costs, but the soon-to-be, the costs of the future when your fellow citizen has this mindset. This is why it is so pervasive to allow socialism to hide under the cloak of freedom, of Americanism. It's not. This is why I reject collectivism, trade policies. This is why I reject the socialism of Social Security and Medicare, and I identify and point out the absolute deception by those who sell it. Because the reality is J.B. Pritzker is a god. The man has done nothing. In fact, he's just waited for his trust fund checks to roll in, which is why he doesn't care. And most of his friends are the same way. They don't care because they can afford to manipulate their money around the barriers and speed bumps and hurdles that they put in front of the ordinary man, of the common earner. Now, can it be changed? Look, if it could, would Chicago be in the position it is? Would Cook County be in the position it is? It's full of good people. It's full of smart voters. It's full of honest and integrity-filled citizens. But the reality is you cannot combat a fascistic tyrant who believes his vision is moral. How else could you in America run a commercial like this and it actually plays? I understand TV is full of whores, that they'll sell anything if you pay them enough money, these radio stations. I get it. The vast majority of them, you give them money, you can run a con on. But ultimately, this is being accepted by the Illinois Democrat Party, which is yesteryear's German Communist Party.
The most important job for the Illinois legislature in the next 5 weeks is to take tough votes on legislation to move the state forward, beginning with a vote for a graduated income tax.
It's important people...
That's not moving it forward. That's moving it backwards to Europe in the 30s. This isn't moving forward to punitively punish workers. That is progress now. And the problem is we've lost the ability to have that argument when we support other failed socialist arguments like Donald Trumponomics, Trumpism. It is an illusion that is just as deceitful, full of intended deception as this.
Seek out facts about the proposal.
Only those making above $250,000 will pay more.
People making more than $1 million will pay the highest rate.
This is fair and necessary.
Isn't
It's time for change. Let's make our tax system fair in Illinois.
Notice the same words. Notice the shared ideology. What's the difference if they pay more? It's fair. What's the difference if they pay more for a product that wasn't made in America? It's fair. Do you see the correlation between the philosophies or lack thereof or intended deception? It's the exact same thing.
So the economy is doing very well by every measure. We're having probably the greatest economy that we've had anywhere, anytime in the history of our country. We're having a little squabble with China because we've been treated very unfairly for many, many decades, for actually a long time. And it should have been handled a long time ago, and it wasn't, and we'll handle it now. I think it's going to turn out extremely well. We're in a very strong position. We are the piggy bank that everybody likes to take advantage of or take from, and we can't let that happen anymore. We've been losing for many years anywhere from $300 billion to $500 billion a year with China and trade with China. We can't let that happen. The relationship I have with President Xi is extraordinary.
More bullshit. Here, have you been losing? You yourself, and the guy looking in the mirror, the lady putting on her lipstick, have you lost anything to China? Or have you gained? Has your quality of life improved through the decades of trade? This is a very, very simple answer, and only those who are willing to lie to their friends cannot lie to themselves right now. The answer is your life has drastically improved in the very history this liar is trying to rewrite. In the same way the socialist rewrites history to benefit him. Donald Trump rewrites history to benefit him. Rather than having you think in your own life how it has enhanced and rewarded you. The options, the opportunity, the value. See, this is what we need to get back to. This is why it's important to tell kids when you're buying a house how to formulate the loss or profit or cost. It's the same with the American consumer. You, with your Maytag refrigerator, it's not an American company. You, on antidepressants, on blood pressure medicine, those aren't American drugs that are helping you. You're already complaining about the cost of these items, washers and dryers and cars, and it pan back and look at it. Your life, the American quality of life today is richer than it has ever been. Yet this guy is determined to make it more expensive, the opportunity and options less, and you to feel patriotic about it. In the same way that the Illinois Democrat scumbag wants you to feel good about taking your neighbor's property. It is the same sales pitch of deceit. And it is important to recognize, because it's only through fundamentals and principles you can correct this and educate the generation behind us. Because after all, isn't that the real gripe? Isn't it the real gripe is that how could somebody possibly be this stupid?
I am told this is a garbage disposal. I've never seen a garbage disposal. I never had one in any place I've ever lived.
Stupid.
It is terrifying. I don't know what to use it for or what its purpose is. Like food scraps? Like, is this environmentally sound? I don't know.
That's somebody who has 50% of the country's absolute and total support. Because we've stopped correcting the generations behind us. We've stopped standing on principles. We've stopped identifying right and wrong. And it's no wonder this kind of stupidity has spread like a fog throughout the land. And I'm hearing it on our side when it comes to fundamental basic economics. It is the same type of stupidity. And as dumb as she sounds about the reality of what true progress is, that's how dumb people sound when they argue against their own freedom, their own liberty, and their own value. There is no such thing as fair when someone else interprets it. It's their idea of right and wrong. That's why I have watched in my lifetime the idea of individuality just be put as an extreme idea. That how comfortable the so-called good guys are with collectivism. How we don't argue against this outright stupidity.
We always win. We always win.
It's so stupid. You only win when you're not coerced, when you're not forced, when you're not manipulated. That's when you win. There is no we. None. And the problem is you're pulled off into these phony teams when the reality is the bad guys win when they gain more power. The bad guys win when you have less choice. They're not winning for you. They're not winning for your sister, for your brother, for your neighbor, for the driver that helped you go to the airport when his costs go up. The only time America wins is through freedom of opportunity. You notice in the last 20 years how much we've lost? And I don't just mean the kids that are killed in these wars no one talks about. I'm talking about the way in which we've lost the quality of our economy. It's really not there. Everyone is looking at a stock market with bated breath, where information can manipulate without focusing on the fact 5 companies make up the majority of the growth in the S&P 500. The Dow Jones has been tweaked, manipulated, so much so that it doesn't matter what those companies actually do versus the kind of rate of return. You just want to see a high Dow. You don't care what the companies are. The reality is we're arguing about the benefits of paying Ponzi scheme public sector pensions versus the reality of your own individual economy and the value of your dollar and the opportunities you have to be in control of your life. This is on a path of true fascism, and I don't throw that around easily. When I tweet things on Twitter and I say you do realize this is the economic policy of Adolf Hitler, I'm not throwing that around to simply be bombastic, but I'm throwing that around to be extremely accurate. That every country that has seized its citizens' rights and freedoms starts off from a position of phony patriotism and protectivism. This protectionism is such a pervasive philosophy that it makes people, it reminds me of those cults where they think the comet's going by and they all drink the poison. Jonestown, where they all drink the Kool-Aid. They're so convinced of their self-righteousness, they voluntarily kill themselves and kill their future and kill their opportunity. That's what has been happening for decades as we borrow money without any consequence, as we ignore who it's owed to, as we ignore the principles of where it's going. And my fear is that the entire United States of America will be one big Illinois, because that's the path it leads to. That's how Illinois started. That's the reality of what happens. The problem is you're picking stupidity. You're picking the best liar. And that's why you have 20-something people running for president, the Democrat nominee, and there's one more every single day. And you listen to what they say, and it's all different versions of the same thing, right? But what is that same thing? Sure, it's Marxism. Sure, it's Trotskyism or Leninism. Or it's all different versions of the same philosophy. That's why they have to have these phony infighting, right? Where Ocasio-Cortez, she doesn't like Joe Biden's green energy program, or Elizabeth Warren pretends to hate Fox News, because what they've learned is that the ingredients to create a rock-solid base that gives up its own best interest is fear. Fear of the other side. Hatred of the individuals. That's why it's fear and hatred builds a base that will really take any kind of decision made by the overlord. And we watch, all of us, I took so much pride in being part of a talk radio community and conservative values and going to the Tea Party events. And I really did, because I felt so much. I said, look at all of these people in all the different categories, of income, all the different occupations, and look at how what they're fighting for is not somebody else's idea of fairness, but their own. How they're recognizing the danger under Barack Obama of a collectivist government that makes decisions on everything. Now, those same people are chanting as it's being done by who you perceive to be your guy who has your best interest in mind. He doesn't. Where's that ECLU clip I sent you? And this is a thing where we've lost the ability to stand on principle when you show that you have none. And now you are brought into a place where it's the best idea of fairness and equality and the most unionization of production. And I wondered, aren't you marveled by the fact that as throughout history, governments have put up these barriers, these regulations, these restrictions, these demands on employers and manufacturers, some have been able to circumvent those, become import-exporters or importers specifically, and give you value. Why would you forever want to give that away? It's mind-boggling to me. I like some things about Donald Trump. And here's the other thing. I can recognize when they're going after Donald Trump in a way in which you should be infuriated. And given the choices, believe me, I understand if it's, if you're going to hit the wall, do you want to hit it at 30 miles an hour or 60? I've had these arguments with numerous people. I see my Facebook now. I know what to expect when I get in the car after a podcast or a radio show. I get it. But this is not the time to have that argument. This is the time to correct the failures of your own side. Because as we rightfully fear this Ocasio-Cortez, as we rightfully see the stupidity of her excitement of basic knowledge. I was talking to Dan right before the show. I said, listen to her. It reminds me of when we would take our kids to the zoo. And the kids, it was cute. They were all excited. And they were like, look at the monkeys behind the cage. What if they get out? They could beat us up. And boy, it stinks in here. Is it going to ruin my clothes? And how they were amazed as they learned the knowledge of everything else everybody should learn. And it brings you to the reality of just how stupid people are who follow these policies of Ocasio-Cortez. The problem is the ones who follow the policies of the trade war are just as stupid.
About the $325 billion, we're looking at it very strongly. We're having a little squabble with China because we've been treated very unfairly for many, many decades, for actually a long time.
Who's we? I've benefited from Chinese trade. I've benefited from my opportunity to seek my own definition of value. Walmart and the people who go there, how have you benefited? I drive a car with a ton of miles on it because I wasn't forced to buy a union-made junk. Why would you give that away in the sense of this man speaking of a we that you don't know who the we is? Because what happens is it becomes we, our side, against this.
Like, I'm Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
That's the we. Just hate and fear that side when you should be fearful of your own side, taking you in a direction that you know is wrong. And, I'm fascinated by the argument put up by the Trump supporter. I'm fascinated by it as he just regurgitates talking points without any thought of his own progress, his own wealth, his own family's success. And it reminds me of what happened in all of these societies, whether it be Venezuela or Germany. It's the same phony patriotism. That's what happens when you lose your idea of what patriotic is, when you lose your fundamentals of what America is. Americanism is not Peter Navarro, Lighthouser, Liza Minnelli, Steve Mnuchin, and Donald Trump making decisions for your consumption and your opportunity and your definition of value. It's not any more than it would be if this dimwit, Ocasio-Cortez, Beto O'Rourke, gee, my pants are tight, Buttigieg. It's the same freaking stupid, only you like yours better. I find it very upsetting that we are to the point where we're picking different versions of wrong, pretending it's truth. I'm sorry. Do I think Donald Trump is being prosecuted by the socialist Soviets in Congress? Absolutely, unequivocally. Do I think their arguments are outrageous in the fact that they go after his family? Absolutely, unequivocally. Am I thankful that Donald Trump exposed the fact that the upper echelon of law enforcement is politically motivated and driven? I sure the hell am. Am I on his side? When it comes to the audacity and fraud of the FISA and the wiretapping? Yes, I think it's the biggest scandal in American history, and I think it's outrageous. And I spit his economics out of my mouth as if they were put in there by Ocasio-Cortez, because I can do two things at once, and you should be able to as well. Because when you watch these business channels and the imbeciles who said one thing 5 years ago say another today, when you see these fundamental prostitutes like Larry Kudlow, and I'm sorry, Stephen Moore as well, tell you that this guy's version of a trade war, of a financial takeover, is somehow different than Barack Obama's, it makes me sick. It's not different. You're just on the side this time. And until, there's still time to correct this. Because if it's one thing Trump can do, has the ability to do, it's to recognize a mistake and then take credit for fixing it. It's time we do that. It's time we do it right now. It's not about a stock market. I don't give a damn about the stock market. It's about the future. And that's why the economics of Trumpism has to be spit and rejected from Republicans, because, ironically, the Democrats love it. There are but nuanced differences between Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, and I mean that. Listen to their policies of health care. Yeah, we're going to do exactly here. So Bernie says we're going to take care of everybody and government should pay for everything. And Donald Trump's retort to that is we're going to do exactly what Bernie said, only we're going to give you a little bit better management, with little different options. You're going to pretend to be private too. When the reality is you're not correcting the financial crimes that insurance have perpetrated for decades. You are not correcting the problem. You're treating the symptom. I don't need physical therapy. I need the tumor in the bone removed. And it's funny. You see the resistance to that by people, even though they know it needs to be done. Here in Chicago, once again, the greatest example of political corruption and failure on the planet is Cook County and Chicago, Illinois specifically. And I don't agree with, what's her name, Lori Lightfoot in her little butler costume at all. But I recognize the fight she's enduring when she tries to strip away the opportunity for corruption by the demigod politician.
Indeed, Erica, as you well know, Chicago aldermen have traditionally ruled their wards with absolute authority over licenses and permits and zoning. That's a tradition that Mayor-elect Lori Lightfoot wants to end. And not surprisingly, she's gotten resistance from some Chicago aldermen. As they made their way to Mayor-elect Lori Lightfoot's transition headquarters, Chicago's kings and queens of the wards were expecting something almost like an overthrow.
Aldermen, right now, there are 50 czars. And that doesn't exist in other cities across this country. We have to change that.
Lightfoot's first executive order, coming on Monday, will strike at aldermanic privilege, but it won't completely wipe it out.
My understanding is that it actually does not touch zoning. That the executive order we are going to see is going to relate very much more specifically to permitting and licensing issues.
And some view that prospect with relief.
There's some things that I'd be willing to give away, as far as, awnings and all that little piddly stuff.
That is, giving the final say over things like alley access, signs, and block parties to City Hall.
But there's no more fear that they're going to be extorted. There's no more fear that they're going to be arbitrarily rejected by the aldermen simply because they didn't write the right campaign check.
That is exactly what the feds say Alderman Ed Burke did when he allegedly tried to squeeze business for his law firm out of a fast food chain after a restaurant wanted a renovation permit. Still, other aldermen insisted even losing control over licenses and permits was a slap in the face.
This strikes at the very heart of what an alderman does in terms of representing their community.
Extort the people, you scumbag.
Mayor-elect Lightfoot wants to establish uniform standards and practices for licenses and permits across the city. Then, if an alderman wants to deny one in his ward, that denial will have to fit specific criteria as well. We're live outside City Hall. Derek Blakely, CBS 2 News. Brad and Erica.
Derek, thank you.
That was Derek Blakely, CBS News. I should have said that in the beginning. However, you do see what happens when you allow government to micromanage every aspect of life and business. For the same reason, these 50 pay-to-play frauds, open and notorious like Ed Burke, should have their power stripped away, is why you should reject giving more power to any politician, even a Republican. That's the same micromanaging of business and future decisions that we need to reject when it comes to the acquisition of trade. Trade is far more fundamental than the tyranny imposed by these 50 aldermen. I'm trying to prove the correlation. It is the same philosophy when you turn over the idea of equality and fairness to a small collective. That our collectivism is not better than their collectivism, even if it's better managed. That it is the opposite of Americanism. This is why Republicans are calling for companies to be broken apart when they get too big, when the idea of that would have been laughed at by capitalists 20 years ago. And now it's talked about as if it's a conservative responsibility. I am watching the definitions change before my eyes. And I can give good advice to young people of why not to buy in garbage states like Illinois and show them the blessings of other well-run 9 without income tax, 9 run in the black, 9 run with fair opportunities to start businesses, the energy of climate and success and opportunity and optimism. That will go away if you turn over that same kind of authority to a Washington, D.C., because Donald Trump is but a stitch in time, even if you love him. This socialist Ocasio-Cortez, or someone who shares her principles, will be president very, very soon. Without you reestablishing exactly what Americanism is and individuality is and the rejection of collectivism, we are future slaves. You could argue 50 ways today how you are right now. Try to buy insurance. Try not to buy insurance. Try to open a business, especially in Illinois. Try to gas up your fracking car here versus another state. And you see why you need to reject the power grab of a fiat dictator demigod, even if you like him and you think his wife is hot. Reject it. Because it's a stitch in time. Oh, I hope he wins in 2020, and I'll listen to all the rah-rah girls. I promise I will. But what about 2024? Then who? You think it's going to be Mike Pence? I don't like to eat lunch with women? I don't think so. It's but a matter of time before an Ocasio-Cortez dim-witted Marxist seizes your life. But you gave it away to the guy who you thought was on your team. Reject it. Reject it now. Now, I have to work. And I do appreciate you listening very much to the Liberty Hour. We'll be back Sunday night, 8 to 9 live. And then next week, I will be here Tuesday and Wednesday. I am pretty sure I will not be here the following week. But we have worked it out with the producer in the yoga pants that we will be able to do this show from Florida, right? And even then, maybe I'll have the backdrop of the ocean. I'll see if I can cozy up to some seaside property there. I do appreciate you listening. I wish you would have called in, but that's all right. You can call in Sunday night, and we will be talking to you very soon.